So this one's going to be very short. The reason that it's going to be short is because I think there's some very important information to get out in this video, but that is all we care about. Is we're just going to get that information out of there, and then we're going to dip. So we're going to be talking about hot dogs or heat inherit companion primers, which isn't as cool as saying hot dogs. So these are hot dogs. If you haven't seen heat inherit before, basic idea here is that the first heat proc on an enemy is going to determine a lot of information about the heat proc. So in this case, when we have an Eximus out like this, and I shoot the Hystrix, which is going to force proc heat for me, you'll see that my overguard is ticking up when that heat proc happens, right? But it turns out that if I use like Fireball, for example, on Ember, the heat dot is also going to give me overguard. And the reason for that is heat inherit, basically. The first heat proc is saying, hey, the heat damage should give me overguard from Fortifier. So any future heat dots on that same enemy, as long as it doesn't wear off, is also going to do that. There are a bunch of different mods that work like this. So Fortifier works, actual heat mods actually work, status duration works, and then Bane mods would also work. So like Bane of Corrupted, for example, would work here, as well as like a bunch of other weird stuff that we're going to go over. So I think that's it. Let's get started. All right, let's talk about Ember nuke builds. So one issue that I've always had with Ember in general is that when she's pressing her 4 to like shoot out these fireballs, you can't actually do anything else. So like this is me just like spamming Epitaph as fast as I physically can. And anytime that I use the fireball, I just can't use my weapon. It's just functionally impossible. Because of this, it makes heat inheriting with a primary or a secondary or any sort of like normal primer super, super annoying in my opinion. And so one of the cool things that you can do with companions is you could actually use like a hound, for example, to do the heat inheriting for you. So if I roar, you can see that roar gets applied to my hound. And then there's a couple of other effects that you can actually heat inherit also. One of those is Summoner's Wrath. So this 1.75 will apply to any of your heat dots also, as long as the heat dot happens from your pet first. So this is heat inheritable. Really, really cool. Other things that are cool that are heat inheritable. Contagious Bond. So this thing that spreads status to enemies when enemies explode and die, also heat inheritable. And so what you can see is that if you're in a situation where you're fighting enemies with a bunch of different levels of health, like this Orcan battle group, for example, as soon as one enemy dies, we'll still get that same Contagious Bond chain and everything else will die. So in my opinion, this is like the best way to heat inherit with Ember, is just with a companion that has Contagious Bond and Summoner's Wrath. So that's why I run the Summoner's Wrath specifically on Ember just for nuke builds, is because I just think it's better. But actually, that's not either the limit to what Ember can do with pets and heat inherit. What we're going to be talking about now is how primer companions work with their heat mods on the actual weapon compared to like what just their normal attacks, I guess. So in this case, we have Betoten here, which we have a heat mod on here, right? But it turns out this 60% heat isn't getting calculated for the heat dots when their abilities do heat damage. So in this case, because Hound Companions basically do entirely ability damage, we don't get that benefit from that 60%. But it turns out that there are other kinds of companions that actually just do mostly like weapon damage. And one of those is Hotdog. Introducing Hotdog. This is my Sunika Kubrow. They are named Hotdog because they do almost entirely heat damage. We do have one magnetic one in here just for the status duration, but the rest of this is just heat damage because of Burning Claws, right? This is turning all of our damage into heat damage. So even these status mods that normally would be doing viral, just more heat. We also have the Mecha Set, and the Mecha Set is really good. If you haven't seen the Mecha Set, there is a video by Rona's Magman that I'm going to be putting in the description about the Mecha Set and why these things are stupid and probably bugged and overpowered. But they are good. Sunika Kubrows are especially important here because they have this ability right here. This hits 8 enemies within 10 meters. And then we also have Frenzy Posture here so that we attack as many enemies as physically possible. And between the two of these two things, it ends up like spreading out its heat attacks pretty consistently. And what you'll see is that I can actually buff him with Fireball Frenzy also, and Roar. And even by himself, he's going to start killing enemies. So if I just do this, you'll watch Hotdog just obliterate these guys. And then as soon as Contagious Bond stuff starts happening, it's so over. Sunika Kubrows are already pretty strong by themselves, but if you're giving them buffs like Roar and even more heat damage, then they're extra strong. But it turns out that like even at higher levels, this is pretty good. So if we're just doing a bunch of Eximus instead like this, and we're giving him those same heat buffs, our other weapons can actually benefit from his heat dot also. So as long as he hits some enemy, we get that same heat buff dot, and then we can chain it like this also. The reason I'm using the Boar incarnate here is because Boar is a mono heat weapon. So all of its status is going into heat, and it also has a ton of status chance in incarnate form. Like, look at that. This is 288 before Crux, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. And it turns out the incarnate form status buff also does seem to apply to Mecha Overdrive. So this primary status chance inherit thing, if you're in incarnate form, it'll get the full status, even though it says 74 here. So that's why we're using Boar Prime, is because its status chance is just so absurdly high. And it also just happens to be a good heat inherit weapon in general. So when this guy hits somebody, you can see that we'll just do the same thing. Just very stupid, right? And it also ends up like leading to a pretty interesting playstyle where you just follow your pet around, and then whatever they hit, you just shoot at until they die, so that Contagious Bond and Mecha Overdrive go off. So very fun. And of course, this would probably go without like mentioning, but this works with anybody who does heat damage. So if you're a Protea player, this works. If you're a Neza player, this works. You know, etc. Like anybody who is a heat nuke of some sort will do this in some way. So like even if you're just using Glory on Jade, like I have a full heat build basically just for the same effect. So it works on basically everything. It's just a plug and play companion type that you should probably have in your arsenal, is either a Sunika specifically designed for heat mecha nonsense, or just have Contagious Bond on your companion primer, just so that they can do this weird heat stuff. And then just run Summoner's Wrath, and then suddenly you just do 1 billion damage. Very fun. But I think that's it. Let's do the outro. Thank you, Master Ironstash, for the Forma 2. I opened this a while ago on stream, and they basically sent it to me out of spite, so I don't even know if they deserve a thank you here, but sure, why not? Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Karasu, for the Forma. Do I have any ability predictions for Xirel? I want him to do heat damage. He's the devil, so that'd be kind of sick. Beyond that, I guess maybe like a Nightcrawler teleport would be pretty sick. I'd love to see something like that. As always, thank you guys for the Forma. Like I don't know, I wouldn't be able to do half the things that I do without all the support from the community. So thank you guys for sending me Forma. And if you do want to send me Forma, my username is down in the description always. So feel free to just send me things, and I promise to answer any questions that you that you ask me there. Beyond that, I am done. This video's over. Goodbye. Don't subscribe.